You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Tumbly Drunk, and tonight is episode 184. We've got our post-BlizzCon wrap-up. We'll let you know what sort of shenanigans we got into over in Anaheim. We'll see what's going on with the latest retail patch this week, and we are going to try to wrap our head around all of the latest announcements for both the Overwatch as well as the Overwatch League. We got quite a bit to go through tonight, Ed. A lot has happened, especially when you consider the fact that for our pre-BlizzCon show, we kind of shoved some of the esports stuff aside in regards to the Overwatch League, so we gotta circle back, kind of add on to that, and we'll see where exactly that's going to take us tonight, because there's quite a bit to discuss. But before we could do that, and introduce you to my co-host, let me just quickly take a moment to thank everyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch for our live show. And of course, I have to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host, Edinar. And Ed, you know, it's been a crazy week, a lot of good times, a lot of drinks were had, a lot of great memories throughout the course of BlizzCon week. But how has this past week been treating you, my friend?
I mean, anything short of chaotic would be an understatement. I mean, it was loads of fun, and I had a blast. I had the time of my life out there. But oh my god, my body hates me, and I'm not even. I got none of the con crud. I lucked out, did not get sick whatsoever. My body's just sore from legit an insane amount of walking for 4 days straight. And drinking. Those two combinations don't work that well. But it was fun. I would do it all over again in a heartbeat. I plan on doing it all over again next year. So it's pretty seamless traveling, to and from. So excited to talk about all the stuff that was announced and shown and all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. So, BlizzCon week is always really special, for, a number of reasons. It's a way to really just connect with, people that you talk to, all the time online, get into, just catch up with other podcasters, because, really, you don't really get to truly talk to someone in person all that often outside of BlizzCon or, some special events here and there. If you're traveling for esports events, but getting to meet some other podcasters for the first time was great. You, Ramses, and I were all hoteling together, so that was interesting. And it was both your first BlizzCon, so that definitely added to the trip in itself. And it seems like every year we just keep bringing in more and more people for that first BlizzCon experience, and then as soon as they get that taste, they're just going to keep coming back for more. But it was a really good time. I am a little nasally. I don't feel sick, but I can definitely hear it in my voice. But flying back late Monday and then having to open on Tuesday was absolute hell. And on top of that, as I mentioned prior, the first thing that happened to me when I got home is I went into my room, and one of my light bulbs wasn't turning on, so I went to loosen and retighten it, only for that light bulb to shatter in my hand. So yeah, that was fantastic. But we had so much going on. Con Before the Storm was awesome. We'll kind of circle back to that when we're talking about other BlizzCon stuff. But BlizzCon was amazing. A lot of good memories, and we spent 13 hours at Disneyland checking out the Star Wars stuff, so that was an absolute blast. But let's talk about Overwatch. That's what we're here to do. And we do have a new patch that was deployed onto retail servers on Tuesday. That was yesterday, November 5th. So this new patch includes updates to competitive play. There's also a new gameplay option, as well as, a couple of hero updates, none of which really impact the meta. But right now, there is a new gameplay option for high-precision mouse input. So basically, when you enable this, it allows Overwatch to use your mouse's native polling rate when determining, exactly where to shoot. So that might come at, like, a slight performance cost. I have not tested this, but, might be worth checking out for some of you out there. But the big thing, Ed, with this patch was changes to competitive play. So, Season 19 is set to get underway tomorrow. That is Thursday, November 7th. So, Season's going to be starting on the first of every other month and ending the first Thursday of every other month. And, they're kind of, like, looking to start the seasons a little bit later in the day to better correspond with, like, developer availability and whatnot. But Season 19 is going to introduce a map pool, so it will feature 12 maps. So you will have 3 from each game mode. And then, we'll start to see maps being rotated out of the pool in future seasons. But most importantly, there is no Paris.
Yeah, not just Paris. There's no, what was the other one that they took out?
Horizon.
Horizon
was the
Colony.
Other one that he named.
Yeah, so those two, and like Horizon Lunar Colony, if you remember, was one of those maps where they probably made the most drastic changes to any map ever to try and make that more competitive. And so you know what? I'm fine with this. Now, with that said, we will get those maps back. Like, because they even say in the patch notes they will be rotating out maps. It's not like they're getting rid of them completely. They said they will be rotating map pools. So it's not like they're just taking them completely out. They're going to have a map pool, and the reason this is, in my mind, and this kind of goes into what they announced, but they're bringing in with Overwatch 2. They're going to be bringing in a lot more maps. A lot more maps. So eventually, it's just going to get too big, like too many maps to deal with. So they needed to go to a map pool. And I'm glad they first took out Paris. So yay for that.
But how am I supposed to shoot my Omnic singers / bartenders?
Quick play. Yeah, it's still in quick play and arcade mode. So you
I don't want to have to go out of my way to do it.
Yeah, because you play competitive all the time. I don't think we've played competitive in like 3 months.
I did a couple of placements before leaving for BlizzCon. I didn't finish them. I did a couple though.
Oh, okay. But yeah, this is universally thought of as a good move. Like, I didn't hear one person be like, "Oh, this sucks." Like, no one thinks that. So this was awesome. Good move. Very good move.
So with that being said, the 12 maps that are in the current rotation for Season 19 starting tomorrow. For Assault, we have Hanamura, Temple of Anubis, as well as Volskaya Industries. Hyper maps include Hollywood, Kings Row, and Eichenwald. Control, we have Nepal, Lijiang Tower, and Busan. And then to round that out, we also have Escort, the Dorado, Watchpoint Gibraltar, as well as Havana Unana. So I have to say, like, I'm pretty happy with this. Obviously, the other option for them could have been, like, maybe, like, voting on what map you want to go to, similar to, like, what we would see in, like, COD. I much rather prefer the map pool. But, like, it's... I don't really like the idea of, like, blacklisting maps, especially, like, when we still don't have, like, a ton of options right now, so I feel like the map pool is the way to go. Because, like, regardless, like, if we did, like, the map ban at any point, everyone would automatically just choose not to play on Paris, for example, time and time again. So, outside of that, looking forward to seeing how the map pool works out. Hopefully, it'll be like a couple of seasons before we see Paris entering the field. Maybe like
Also, I was just gonna say, I believe Ilios is gone too. I think Ilios is not included with this. So that might be out of the rotation as well, which is actually a fun map.
right.
But I think they wanted to get rid of one in each like group or something along those lines. So, but yeah, Ilios is gone as well.
And well, I'm actually okay with that. That means we won't get ruins. I won't get destroyed by widows. So that's good. But outside of that, we also have some new workshop features and values. Obviously, we're not going to get into that because we have no idea what any of that stuff really means. But you know, if you're into the workshop modes, code in all of that stuff, go check it out. But outside of that, we have another update to certain abilities. Like May's Ice Wall, the Immortality Field from Baptiste, as well as Sigma's Gravitic Flux. More heavily preferring edges over placing them as far away as possible. So, like, this has been something, Ed, that keeps coming up time and time again. And, like, I don't play enough May or Baptiste or Sigma to really notice any issues. I know at one point, like, when you were trying to place an ice wall, like, it wouldn't stick to one spot. Like, I remember, like, for example, like, the King's Row window, when you're trying to, like, block out the sniper perch, was one of the spots that was causing a lot of problems, but I haven't really seen anything outside of that. But I mean, if this is on the patch notes, it must still be happening in certain aspects, but I wonder if it's, like, map specific, or if it's just a general problem across the board.
I think they're just trying to fine tune it, and they're finding more and more situations where this is occurring. And I mean, in my mind, this should be under bug fixes rather than, hero updates. But I think it's just that, like, they keep finding different locations, different ways that this is not working as intended, and they're going in and fixing it. And that's how I read this. So this is more of a bug fix than anything.
Right on. And in regards to hero updates, they have two. So looking at Baptiste, specifically his biotic launcher, the recovery was decreased from 0.45 to 0.36 seconds. They removed the random spread of the weapon, and then the damage fall-off range now begins at 25 meters, which is an increase from 20 meters. So, it seems like a little bit more consistent damage across the board might definitely help out, should hit scan be needed to deal with Pharahs. So a little bit more precise damage across the board. We'll see if the recovery decrease is going to be as drastic as, like, some of the recent, like, Ashe or, like, McCree changes. So I haven't hopped on live yet to see how that feels. But, you might have to adjust kind of minorly to that. But I've been a fan of seeing, like, these damage fall-off ranges starting to increase. Like, I know Tracer recently had hers. They're actually able to do, like, some pretty decent, like, poke damage with Tracer now with the pulse pistols. So hopefully Baptiste will see a little bit of a damage boost from these particular ranges.
You know what? You will see a damage increase, but I don't think it changes Baptiste's place in the meta at all, because it's not like those bullets can travel through shields. So,
Right.
like, you're never going to use Baptiste over Moira. The only time you'll use it really is if you're bunkering up. And that's more for the healing and the immortality field than pumping out some extra damage. So I don't see this as changing in the meta in any way, but it's definitely a nice little change to make Baptiste a little bit more playable and viable.
So the only other hero that they touched with this most recent patch was Torbjorn, specifically Molten Core, where they reduced the cost by 10%. Now, I've been browsing the social media, Ed, and the general reaction was like, LOL, Overwatch is playable again. For the most part, like, because neither of these are really targeting the double barrier meta or anything like that. Doesn't really, like, hurt someone like Reaper, who's been, like, a staple component for actually a while now, even going back to, like, May Reaper strats, which are still fairly common at this point. So, like, it's just kind of like one of those things where it's like, sure, we got changes, but not a lot of changes are going to come from these specifically. But Torbjorn, he's okay. This is more of a thing that I'll mess around with in quick play. Probably not something I'm gonna be dealing a whole lot with in regards to comp. But at the end of the day, these were not the changes that we were. But I do applaud, the map changes.
Yeah, the map change is awesome. Baptiste change, whatever. The Torbjorn change, lol. Like, ooh, we get Lavagasm 10% earlier. All right, 10%
it's
of
a little bit
nothing.
more premature.
10% of nothing is nothing. Still not playable. So, yeah, that's just a nothing change.
Yeah.
So,
But
whatever.
just wait until his turret is a flamethrower.
True. I expect in the next few weeks we're gonna get some massive updates when we get the new map type put on the PTR, because that they said will be coming out soon. So I would expect some massive changes to come around then.
Yeah, we're just like kind of at the point now where they made all of these changes going back to like the 3-3 meta, tweaking a lot of different characters, they implement 2-2-2, and then really hasn't been a ton of tweaking done since then. So I don't know if they just need to like look back and kind of like revert the changes that they had made to kind of like take out some of the 3-3 heroes in particular, or if they just need to come in to the new PvP mode with a fresh idea, do like a general overhaul of just some of the way that some of these characters work and go from there. I don't know, but at the end of the day, like when we look at the current timeline, it is safe to say that we are definitely at that point in the current meta where a lot of the community wants change. They've been very outspoken at this point, and we still don't have something in sight to, water our mouths, so to speak.
Yeah, but when did they not bitch about the meta? Like, honestly, like, has there been a meta
No.
that people did not bitch about? No, there hasn't been. So whatever meta is going to be next, they're going to be pissed about that one too. And after a few months, they're going to be like, change it, change it, change it. You know what? Shut up. Like, I get it. Yes, they need to change the meta every so often, and it does get changed every so often. Yes, goats probably lasted a little bit too long. Um, but this meta is, when was the finals? Like a month ago, month and a half. So we've had this meta for like under 2 months, and they're like already pissed and want a new meta. No, like, like metas last longer than 6 weeks, 7 weeks.
Yeah, I think at this point though, like since we know like the competitive seasons are people kind of look at it where they want each season to kind of have its own flavor. Now, I'm not going to say like that's going to mean like every season we're going to have like 3 or 4 new heroes in regards to like what's being played in the meta or anything like that. But regardless, we are in a community that after a week or two, if things situate and there doesn't seem to be any sort of aversion in sight, then that's when people start to get a little grumbly about everything that's going on within the game. But we'll see what happens with the next P tier update because we are expecting some pretty major things. But, I don't know if they'll be completely like heavy-handed in regards to hero updates. But like they've kind of been like switching back and forth. Like this one was pretty light. Maybe that means we'll have a lot more in the future patch. But for now, we kind of just have to wait with bated breath.
Yep. Yeah. Who knows if they change it now or if they. I actually think with this next update they don't change this meta. I think they wait one more like round and change it then just before uh Overwatch League. Get a new meta going into that.
What they should do, as soon as they push to the PTR, you bring dive back, right? Since that's a hyper aggressive PvP structure, but we'll get more into that later. But people are gonna be sick regardless of what the meta is after a little bit of time, regardless. But I would not be surprised if they tried to be a little bit more aggressive, just revolving balance updates around the start of the competitive season forward, because you can't really structure it around the Overwatch League due to kind of like the format changes that we are seeing with the league going T20. So outside of that, obviously we have some news coming out of BlizzCon. Some more minor news. Obviously, we'll get into the heavier news in regards to like Overwatch 2 later on in our main discussion for tonight. But we've seen an issue lately, and this is true at like higher levels where there have been increasingly longer queue times. So our dev and savior, Papa Jeffy Cap, praise him.
What's his name?
We're not doing it. Not yet. We'll get to that.
Alright.
But he's basically looking to give players something to do in queue. So players are going to be able to play different modes while waiting to join a match. So Kaplan revealed during the What's Next panel at BlizzCon that the dev team will be adding a unique deathmatch mode designed specifically for players that are waiting in queue. He also noted that players can boot up custom games, as well as going into workshop modes, things like that, while waiting for a match, going into like the practice range. Because right now you just can't really do anything outside of skirmishing, which is kind of pointless. And just kind of like looking through cosmetics or just waiting at the menu for up 10 minutes at this.
Yeah, I mean, this is nice that they're going to be doing stuff like this. Because you get some of these high-end DPS players that are waiting 45 minutes for a queue. It kills their stream because whatever. A lot of them will go play another game while they wait in queue, and they obviously don't want that. So adding in deathmatch is the perfect way to do something like that, or do custom game modes, or stuff like that. I think that's a very smart move by Blizzard and a good alternative because there's no way for them to make the DPS queue shorter. There's just no way. Like the DPS queue is based off of how many tanks and supports are playing, and outside of like giving them more loot boxes, there's no way to like force people to play tank or healer. So this is a good alternative to keep the pure DPS players happy and keep them playing the game.
Right on. But what if, Ed? This is gonna kind of tie into the cinematic really quick. There was one part in the cinematic, and this is dealing with tank and support here, by the way, where Reinhardt and Brigitte interlock their shields. Do you think that would entice more people to play those roles specifically?
No.
I don't think so.
Shut up. That was worse than an Ed comment.
There's too many.
I wouldn't have even thought that because my first thought was like, yeah, they're gonna want to play more shields. Like
I
there was
mean,
only
to be fair, Brigitte doesn't really use her shield.
yeah, there were two. There was one tank in that cinematic that had a shield, and somehow they still managed to have two shields in the cinematic. So
Magic.
yeah,
Cinema magic, that's what that was.
cinema magic.
So outside of that, of course, also at BlizzCon, during the Artists at Work panel, we actually got a sneak peek at one of this year's Winter Wonderland skins. So the skin in question was for Sigma, obviously Overwatch's most recent release hero, and it gives Sigma kind of like this White Walker-esque appearance, along with, some horns. He has white skin, white hair, almost reminiscent of like Arthas from the Warcraft universe, given, there's a ton of skulls on the armor as well, and sure enough, the skin is dubbed Lich King Sigma to really tie it all together at this point. So Ed, obviously, Winter Wonderland right around the corner. It does tend to start, kind of like towards the beginning of December, so it's only a matter of time before we'll be able to get our hands on it. But I know, being the Christmas guy, Winter Wonderland is your favorite event going on outside of Junkenstein, because Junkenstein is awesome too. But for you, it's always Christmas first. What are your thoughts on the skin that we're going to get, seeing as Sigma hasn't really gotten a whole lot of love in regards to the events since he is a newer hero?
I mean, I like the skin. There's nothing that special about it. It's not like I would be shocked if it's a legendary skin. I see this being more of win 9 matches, get this skin. I see it being one of those, and if not, being an epic skin. I mean, I'll get it obviously because this is really the only skin Sigma has for an event. I highly doubt they give Sigma 2 skins
Right.
for the Christmas event. So, like, obviously, I'll want it. But it's I'd give it a 6.5, 7 out of 10. At this point, it's decent. Nothing too crazy. Still doesn't have shoes. Um, you know, and obviously they teased it. Everyone, unless you live under a rock, knows about the next Warcraft expansion and Lich King and that whole shenanigans that happened. So they're kind of tying it into that, and I'll probably end up getting it
Just because it's
just because it's Christmas. I've already started listening to Christmas music.
I'm well aware of that.
The Buble. Gotta listen to the Buble.
It just needs a little bit of the bubbly.
Yes. This is when Mariah Carey shines. Christmas time. She's like, my career isn't meaningless anymore. It's Christmas time. And I have one song.
Yeah.
So, same with Boyz II Men.
Well, anyways, let's talk a little bit about what's been going on in Overwatch esports. There's been a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, we had the World Cup. So, brief rundown of what happened at the World Cup. Starters, USA won! They finally escaped from the quarterfinals. And, that was pretty much a guarantee after they finished atop their group in the group stages over the likes of France, South Korea, Sweden, and a team that upset us last year in the United Kingdom. So US had a perfect group stage, which earned them a bye straight to the semifinals in the playoffs, and there they would await the winner between South Korea and Denmark in the quarterfinals, which went 3-0 in favor of the back-to-back-to-back champions. Now, it's safe to say, US, they had a fairly good team this year. They had 3 players from the reigning Overwatch League champions, and en route to their win, the team had only dropped 1 map, and that sole map loss was against South Korea in the semi-finals. So after we bested the Korean powerhouse team, we went on to sweep China 3-0 to secure the gold medal in the finals, and at the end of the day, it was Sinatra taking home yet another MVP honor in the World Cup, which was his second MVP win, after he was named the Overwatch League MVP here. So we have Sinatra, Super, and Moth having won both the World Cup and the Overwatch League Championship, and there's only one other player in the league that has that accolade to their name, and that is Fury, who, more news on him later, but, he did play for London Spitfire. So, Ed, I forgot to ask you, was this your first esports event that you've gone to?
Yes, it was my first esports event, and first sporting event ever where I spent 10, 11 hours in the arena at once. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, and everyone said this, um, and you could just feel it. The championship match was U.S. versus South Korea.
Right.
It was not U.S. versus China. Um, Once U.S. beat South Korea, you knew they were going to win it all, regardless, because they had just so much momentum. But that U.S. South Korea matchup was lit. Um, that was really good. You saw a lot of good players that you don't really, you didn't really expect. Visality, I think it was.
Facility, yeah.
Uh, Visality and Leaf. Yeah, Leaf from Giganti. What country though?
That was France.
France. That's it. Really shined. And then, you had Denmark, who was my dark horse. They did better than anyone expected. And then you had the Netherlands, who didn't actually look half bad. Um, and then everyone wants me to say suck it Asia, but I mean Asia took second and third place. You know who didn't even place? EU. So suck it, EU. They had 3 teams in the final, in the last day, and they couldn't even place in the top 3. So suck it, EU. Yeah, Team USA did look good, but the 2 weak spots were pretty obvious. Were pretty obvious and what everyone expected to be the weak spots, in Super and Raucous. But they were Team USA, I'll just say this now, was hard carried by the DPS. The reason I said boo when Totem mentioned that Sinatra won the MVP, Sinatra played amazing. He had nothing on Corey. Nothing. I mean, there were Corey chants in the stadium while he was playing. Corey was the marquee player for Team USA this year, which was awesome. It's awesome to see some new fresh faces out there, really kind of shine. And yeah, it's one of those things where they played well. Moth played well. Super played very well. Sorry, Space played really well. Super was adequate. Raucous was adequate. He died a lot, first, so that's not that great.
Not as much as IDK did, though. Oh my god, man.
Oh yeah, but the thing is IDK is crazy aggressive, and Raucous really isn't.
South Korea this year was just kind of lost. That you could tell there were some communication issues going on with that team, especially with the support line in particular, which was a shame to see. But no, in the group stage, they really weren't playing the meta. They were kind of just around. They figured they were gonna make it anyway. Sure enough, they did. And then US beat them, which is such a huge thing for us, especially in the United States. It's a sign that we've really taken that step forward, and of course the Overwatch League has helped with that. But having that shock core for the US World Cup team was a huge deal for them, and now it actually gives us something to build off of. So they actually kind of like met the expectations that they set for themselves this year. Gone is that team of forever fifth through eighth place. So now they actually have a medal to their name, which is great to see.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, this year with the World Cup, things were a little bit different, not just in the results, but also with the format. So what was kind of weird this year was, the first day at BlizzCon, they really weren't showcasing any matches at the convention.
No.
So they had the group stage where there were 4 different matches going on at the same time. Now, if you were at home, you could kind of switch back and forth or focus on any match in particular through one of the 4 Twitch channels that were running at the time. Which, by the way, the viewership was 140K ish peak or something like that for the semifinals with the U.S. South Korea. That was a high point, with the grand finals drawing 10,000 or so below that. But being at the convention, we couldn't really follow anything that was happening in regards to the group stage. Now, in the Overwatch hall, they were kind of switching back and forth here and there. They were doing a lot of stuff with the desk, but they really weren't fixating on any of the matches. So it kind of was more along the lines of an NFL red zone type deal, but we didn't even quite get that same amount of exposure to the games, as opposed to things that happen in a red zone even. So it was kind of off putting. But there were moments with there was an alarm going off during one of the matches from what I was told. So they were having to deal with that. But, there's been, complaints about being able to hear comms from other teams because, there really wasn't anything separating them where they were competing. So, that kind of, muffled communications a bit. But all in all, regardless of what changes there were to the format, the World Cup, to me, still delivered. It was a big moment for the West team. And, because of the format changes this year, it did allow more opportunity for us to roam the BlizzCon floor as opposed to just being, shored up in the arena on both days like I would normally be doing in prior BlizzCon.
Yeah, and honestly, with the new format, there was no good way for them to show the matches in BlizzCon
Mm-hmm.
on Friday. Because you're not going to have 4 matches up on the screens at once and all that stuff. Just not going to happen. There was no good way to go about it, so they had to do kind of what they did. The production might have not been the best, but NA production though. Um, so yeah, that was iffy, but it did give us the opportunity to actually go out and see the BlizzCon floors. Um, and all that. And Rick Dog in chat is like, do you think the new format cheapens the US win? Not really. I don't think it cheapens it at all because let's be real, the majority of the South Korean players were probably already here, and it's not like they had to travel all that far. Um, I think it benefited some teams and not the others, but for the top teams, I don't think it was a huge issue. Um, I would make one change to the format, and that is I would not allow Overwatch League players to play in the World Cup anymore. I you know what, because you are starting to hear reports of there's no incentive, the players don't make anything from doing this.
Mm-hmm.
This is their off season after having a 8-month season. There was that assistant coach or someone from South Korea who flat out said him and Krusty paid 10K out of pocket for travel expenses, food, and all that stuff for the team South Korea. Like, this is not something that is beneficial for Overwatch League players. Yes, you're competing for, you know, US pride or anything like that, but you're not getting anything out of it except lot of waste of time. Whereas if you just have contenders players in it, contenders or below, it's a way for them to showcase their talents to the world more so than having just these stacked Overwatch League teams like Team USA, Team South Korea, so on and so forth. That's the only format change I would make personally.
I don't know how I'd
So
feel about that, because, like, at the end of the day, the Overwatch League players are a pretty big draw. Granted, the viewership numbers weren't that great, but I don't want them to kind of cheapen the overall experience. It's not to take anything away from the tier 2 talent, because like there were a lot of Path to Pro players that really popped off this year. But like that's always kind of the case. But like I don't think the team synergy across the board would be as smooth if every team was just filtered through contenders or anything like that. In regards to the new format potentially cheapening the US win, I don't agree with that. You would look at the amount of work that the US team put into boot camp in this year. They did not want to put themselves in a position to let us down again. And that's been something that's been a chip on their shoulder like the past couple of years, because they just never were able to escape that quarterfinals. So they were absolutely tryharding in the group stage. They wanted to secure, that top spot. They wanted to make sure that they would get that bye, and they earned it after that perfect group stage at this point, and only dropping one map along the way, even including the playoffs, was an accomplishment in itself. Because like even South Korea, at times in the World Cup, has bled, but US looked pretty pristine throughout the cup this year. I was so happy to see, regardless of how much I would have enjoyed just throwing it back in people's face had they dropped the ball again.
yeah, I don't know. I think they're going to tweak it a little. Personally, I think they're still working on the right format.
Yeah, and to that too, like there were teams that had to back out last minute. It was one of them. The Thailand team was another one who I was really looking forward to compete again this year. Even without Patafan, they were still one of the standouts that we're used to seeing every year. But I don't know if they need to do it like every other year. Like having so many of these teams having to pay their way out to Anaheim is a pretty tall ask for a lot of people. And yes, like I understand, like they had 33 teams altogether at the World Cup this year, which is actually a lot. But I do like the qualifying stages. I like traveling to all these different locations across the globe. But I don't like the idea of like having a crowd fund just to make sure that a team make it out there. It's just it puts teams in a bind, and letting sponsors down is absolutely crushing if you're one of those teams who get knocked out in the group stage. Yes, it's cool, like they get to experience BlizzCon, but it puts you in this spot where it's like, okay, like we have to perform now, otherwise, we're just letting everyone down, our sponsors, country, all of that. So I don't know what the plan for future World Cups is going to be. I know there were a lot of rumors that we might not have even gotten one this year. But we've seen the esports side of Overwatch constantly like changing up the format. I would not be surprised to see them switch things up again, given what some of the feedback has been, both from like a small team, like a small country's perspective, even going into like production issues that they were happening, which there were a ton of. But they've never really broadcasted as much as they did this year compared to those other 3 years.
Yeah, even if they did something along the lines of having it be BlizzCon week instead of trying to fit all the games into one day, have them have the brackets set up so like the first round of games are played on Monday or Tuesday, and then the next round on Wednesday, and so on, and then continue it that way. That way, players aren't basically in shit conditions. Like I guess, like you were talking about the comms being heard, they they said what they just had a sheet up in between teams, and that was blocking them. That's not blocking communications. Um, it's just I think the overall like back end production of it, or the production of it that we don't see needs to be improved. And I think part of the reason it was so bad is because they had to try and jam it all um into one day, and that was just a shit show.
That was chaos.
Yeah, so yeah, they need to do something about that. I didn't mind having like Golden Boy and Zoe and Reinforce up on stage doing like the red zone and all that. If it's done properly, but it wasn't done properly. So uh, expect changes for sure.
And speaking of changes, we also have some updates for the Overwatch League format, which just was unveiled during, it was like during the watch point that was happening. Also during, some other Overwatch stuff, which was poor timing on that part, but only so much you can do when Overwatch takes up so much time at BlizzCon. So during the panel at BlizzCon, we got some new details for the upcoming season of the Overwatch League, which includes details on a new midseason tournament, as well as deeper map pools and changes to the match structure. So they had John Spector on to fill us in on all the details. That is the Activision Blizzard Senior Director of Product Strategy and Business Operations. Oh, that's a mouthful. So Season 3. As we all know, we have 52 homestands. That's over 27 weeks, all happening between February and August. So this new tournament that we're getting is during the All-Star break. So it's a mid-season tournament. It is a 4-team bracket featuring Atlantic and Pacific Conference leaders. And we'll also have 2 other teams joining them based on the best records through Week 10, which is not limited by conference affiliation. So, for all we know, we might have 3 Pacific teams. But we'll see on that. So, we don't know whether or not the mid-season stuff is going to impact the playoff picture at all. I can't imagine that actually being a thing at this point, because, like, what are they going to do? Like, you can't really give someone, like, home field advantage compared to, like, traditional sports, since they've always kind of, like, done a neutral location, so to speak, on that front. But gone is the 4-game minimum match style from the prior seasons, and we're moving to first to 3. Which I'm excited about. So that means, like, if we have a stomp, we won't have to play that meaningless map 4.
Yep. Gone are the days of trying to figure out, well, what are the map differentials in what possibly could happen in this map differential, and so on and so forth. Gone are those days. That was a huge announcement. Just huge when they brought it up. And again, not one person I heard complain about it. As far as the mid-season tournament, the question I have, because it's over like all-star whatever. So if you're in those teams that are playing in that tournament, are you exempt from participating in any of the all-star stuff? Because that would make the most sense. Like teams, if the mid-season tournament, if you actually get money out of that, the teams will not allow the players to be in the all-star game, because it just won't happen. So it I mean, it's kind of like that in the NFL. Like in the NFL, you can get voted in, but if you're playing in the Super Bowl, you're not playing in the Pro Bowl, because obviously the Super Bowl is more important. Um, so I'm interested to see that some good quality of life changes that were announced. The the first to three is that's so massive.
It's massive for the format. It's terrible if you're a bench boy.
Yeah, because you're no longer gonna be put in during trash time. You're not gonna be like, we're up 3-0. This map means nothing. Time for me to shine.
Yeah, let's
We
throw
call
in IDDQD.
that the quarter main effect.
Hmm.
Although now he's a starting support player, so that's a little awkward.
Yeah.
But yeah, the bench players are going to definitely see less playtime.
So
Which,
no
whatever.
maps as opposed to like 2.
Yeah, Mickey's career just even went further down the shitter.
Yeah, unless there's more like Doomfist one. So
Yes.
so basically, like, what does this mean for the Overwatch League? It means basically, potential shorter broadcasts, which I'm okay with, because, like, let's be real, like, obviously with everything shifting to Saturday and Sunday games, uh, the global start times, kind of like all over the place, so it's gonna be a little bit easier to, get caught up on that front. But just see how that works out. But across the board, a lot of people are liking the new format change. And outside of that, each match is going to begin on control still. No changes there, but the next 3 maps are going to rotate between Hybrid, Assault, and Escort. Now, you might be wondering, what about the new PvP mode, Totem? Not happening. At least in 2020.
Oh, did they officially rule it out for 2020?
They haven't like officially announced it, but like it wasn't mentioned at all.
Mm.
So if it's gonna be added, like it might be a last minute thing, but I can't imagine that just being something that they're gonna be like, oh, we're just gonna put this in mid season.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
Plus, they always go into the discussion of they want what's being played in the Overwatch League to be the same as what you're playing on servers. So basically,
Well,
guys.
I mean, if that's the case, then it will be out. Because if they said that push is going to be coming on the PTR here in the next couple weeks, which would put it easily into the live server by the time the Overwatch League starts.
I don't know. I can't imagine them pushing the new mode with only 1 map. That'd be kind
Oh
of
yeah,
weird.
no, they would have to release 3 maps with it.
Which is why, like, I'm ruling it out at this point. So we'll see. I'm not expecting it. I wouldn't expect it at all. Next season, and then 2021 played on the new engine.
Okay.
Everything would be my guess.
Yeah, and it sucks that push won't be on there because that map can get some nutty results. Like it can be the first for those who didn't really dive into it. You could like the best way I can describe it is imagine you're doing a payload map and they get it to 99% done on push. In theory, you could flip it and push it all the way back and win. Like that's how crazily and the first time that happens is going to be called like the greatest map of all time type of situation. So yeah, some nutty stuff will happen when the push maps come out, and it's going to cause great viewership.
So, in regards to tiebreaker, like let's say we go to a 5th map, it will be control. Keeping that as the tiebreaker. Really no changes on that front there.
Yep. And it will continue to be controlled. So let's say there was a tie earlier and nobody's at 3 and they play map 5 and the other team goes to 2-2, they will play a 6 map, but that will also be a control map. So once you hit map 5 and beyond, it's control map, so there's no possibility of a tie.
Right, and because of that, they are also expanding the map pool to include all 5 control maps. Outside of that, you'll still have 3 from each other map type. But again, like, we're still quite a ways off from the Season 3. Doesn't kick off until February 8th. Still got a lot of time in between here. And we're still trying to get caught up with all of the madness that has been happening in regards to roster moves. So we're gonna go team by team, Ed, just to keep things a little bit
Really?
more
Fun
organized.
things have happened.
A lot of things have happened over the past like 9-10 days, whatever day it was that we recorded our BlizzCon special. That was last month.
We apologize in advance if some of these we talked about last Wednesday. It's very confusing to keep track of all of this.
Yeah, because I know like some of the stuff was announced before our last episode, and I threw it in the day that it was announced. And I know there was stuff announced like that night that I didn't add, so F if I know, but let's start from the top with Atlanta Reign. So they traded their main support, Funny Astro, to Philadelphia Fusion. And then we have 2 promotions from ATL Academy. They promoted the tank line, so moving up we have Gator, who played main tank. Also, kind of like their playoff superstar. As well as their off-tank, Hawk. So, I know you and I, we are huge ATL Academy fans. There was a little switcheroo in regards to the gauntlet stuff, in regards to the tanks, which still worked pretty good for ATL. But when it comes to pretty obvious call-ups, outside of Alarm, these were the most obvious ones that needed to be made. And Hawk has really been standing out here. And Gator has proven to be pretty flexible, whether it is filling in with Sigma or just playing a main tank right out of the gate.
Yeah, and these were 2 obvious call-ups. Hawk being especially one, because the flex tanks for Atlanta, when you had Daco and FRD, they were okay. No, they weren't anything special. They were okay. They were very serviceable. But when you have like a star flex tank like Hawk, they're gonna get brought up. And Gator proved that he was a very good main tank, and it's just smart to bring them up together. Um, as far as I'm a big Funny Astro fan. It's just he had no place on this team. He was not replacing Masa. Masa is one of the best main supports in the game. So Funny Astro was not replacing him. So they traded him away so he could actually play in the Overwatch League, which good for them. They probably got a good chunk of money back for that. So these were 3 very good moves from Atlanta. Now I wonder what they're going to do with the other tanks on their team. Because, I mean, they're set on DPS, I think, and they're set on tank line and support. It's just a matter if they want to sign depth.
Right.
That's the big thing next.
Yeah, it's worth noting too that we're getting pretty close to that like next window date where all teams need to have minimum 8 players under contract. I want to say that's at the start of next week. So leading into our next episode, which would be episode 185, probably going to hear a lot of other roster moves and sign-ins, or re-sign-ins for that matter. So definitely keep a close eye on that, which again, you can be updated if you just follow our Discord channel, all that good stuff. So moving into Boston, the Uprising have signed 2 players. They signed Myeonbon from O2 Blast, who is a flex support. And then they also signed Jerry, who is from Meta Athena and is a former off-tank turned flex DPS. So all of this was like kind of unveiled during a Q&A with Huck. And, going back, like, Myeonbon had been a name that had been thrown around a lot, especially in the Florida Mayhem camp. So, like, there was always an inkling that he was going to be getting signed relatively soon for the Overwatch League. It just so happened that we had to wait out the entirety of the season to see that happen, but I was really expecting him to be called up to the Overwatch League mid-season of 2019, and that never happened. But Boston have not had the best track record with flex supports in particular. So I I like Myeonbon, but I am cautiously optimistic on this front. But Jerry is an interesting piece just because like it's almost reminiscent of RCK in a way. But from what we've seen past on Metathena, he's a much better DPS than he was.
Yeah, I mean these are except for, and I'm not gonna butcher the name, so I'm gonna come up with a name on my own. I'm just gonna call him Bong. So the signing of Bong is a little surprising to me, because that's actually like was a sought after flex support, and that's not Boston's mo. Like they don't go after people that other teams want. They generally try and sign like the lesser known talent, grow them, and then trade them off. That's why, you know, these two signings basically doubled their roster. Um, so that was very surprising to me, but maybe they got him at a good deal. We don't know. Maybe they're just hoping that he really shines and they can trade him off. Jerry, which is the most basic ass gamer name of all time. Like now, every time hear his name, I'm just gonna be like, is it Jerry from Parks and Rec? Like that's what I think now when I hear Jerry. So, um, that's a very like Boston Uprising signing. Like not a superstar, but has potential to be, good at what he does type of situation. So, Boston is going in a semi decent direction. Um, Again, they're not going to be vying for the championship. They're vying for the middle of the road. That's what they go for. And if they exceed those expectations, awesome. If they don't, then no one will be that surprised.
And then they'll just release everyone.
Exactly. Like I mean, I 100% don't think Fusions is going to be on this team throughout the whole year. I think Fusion gets traded.
Yeah, then they just run Axiom at that point.
Exactly.
Maybe go with the Korean front on that regard. But moving on to Dallas Fuel, some pretty interesting stuff going on with Dallas here. So for starters, they acquired Decay from the LA Gladiators, and in exchange for that, they traded OGE to the Gladiators. They might be wondering, okay, so they don't have a main tank. Well, they went out and they signed Gamzu. So now we have Note and Gamzu reunited, and of course, they had tanked for the Boston Uprising in Season 1, which, going back to Season 1, they looked fairly good together. And of course, that included a perfect stage, or an undefeated stage, I should say, for Boston in that regard. And, like, Decay, like, I was certain, like, the who are you to Dallas rumors were gonna be legit after he's just been floated around everywhere. But Decay is an interesting sign-in. Maybe this will finally put a stamp in regards to, okay, we have our star DPS, we have our flex DPS situated, now we just need to build around him. But if you're a Dallas fan, I'd be ecstatic. It's just a matter of, like, we knew Decay was like the biggest get in the off season, in regards to going into season 2. Does that mean OGE's contract is really valued to the same extent? I don't know. But you basically evened out in regards to main tank, I would say, between OGE and Gamzu, and then you picked up a superstar caliber DPS in Decay. Hopefully, though, he can live up to the expectations that were kind of stamped on him at an early stage. But it does solve some of the DPS woes for Dallas, but I don't think they're quite there as of yet. But they have a good foundation at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I love their tank line. I love the reuniting of Gamsu and Note. I think that's like Note is one of the best off tanks in the game, especially of divas in the lineup. Gamsu was just awesome. Decay, we all know how I feel about Decay and how amazing he is. But like you said, their DPS lineup is kind of solidified now when you have Decay and then you'll have Zachary on the other side. Um, and then their support line is it's okay. You know, Unco Enclosure, nothing to write home about, but not horrible. But they have just the most janky ass backups in the Overwatch League. Like we're looking at who they have, and they have a who's who of who used to be good. Like you have Taimu, you have Mickey, you have Harry Hook, you have AKM. Well, Trill is fairly new, but like you have all those players under contracts. That's going to be super detrimental to your team if you don't have that flex.
Do you feel like Dallas needs to buy someone out of their contract in order to make another sign in?
I think Mickey and Harry Hook need to be bought out. I would keep Taimu because honestly, if Widowmaker becomes amazing, Taimu is a good Widowmaker. I would think we've all seen that. I would keep Taimu, but Mickey offers you nothing, just except for fans love him. Outside that, he offers you nothing. And Harry Hook, you don't see Harry Hook unless Unco goes out with an eye injury. Like I think you need to get a better backup flex support, or yeah, you need to get a better backup flex support. Um, and then I think you need to probably get a better backup tank in this situation because next year it's going to be all about who has the best depth and stuff like that. So they have a good starting six, but man, they really need to up their backup game. And sadly, I might have to buy a flippin' Dallas Fuel jersey.
Right? That much for
Might have to,
my Decay third kit Gladiators jersey. Feels bad,
right?
man.
I'll
Uh,
probably I'll probably cheer for the Fuel just because they have Decay now.
right. I am getting some wonky stuff with OBS again, guys. So like, if we get any frame drops, please let me know. I am seeing it jump a little bit between everything. I'll probably tweak settings again just to try to get all the ducks in a row at that point. But moving on to London Spitfire, some interesting moves here. So for starters, they traded Fury over to Philadelphia Fusion, and then they have signed both Fuse and Bernard from Fusion University. So Fuse was their main support. Bernard was their off tank. So London is still a work in progress. We don't know the full picture yet. But there's been a lot of big pieces that have moved elsewhere from London at this point. Fury being one of the more notable ones. Obviously, they also lost Profit. I mean, a few other players. But I have a lot of questions still about this roster, but I'm happy to see Fuse and Bernard getting the opportunity. And man, like if you're Fusion Uni, like where do they go from here? Like, do they come back to NA? Do they stay in Korea? Because half of that team at this point is gone.
God, I don't even know. Like, this is just a wonky team. I can't tell if they're going for it or if they're not going for it. Because like the thing is Bernard is a good flex tank. And Fuse is a good main support. Like Fusion University had good people. They just did. Um I just don't know what the hell they're gonna do for the rest of it because right now there's not much DPS left out there that could really make them contenders. Especially because a lot of the Korean talent has been picked up already. I mean, there's still a lot of Korean talent still out there, but a lot of the big names out there have been swiped up. So I have no idea what the Spitfire are doing. I'm surprised Bedosian is still on the team.
Hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see what the hell they even do.
Well, we do have a better idea about the Gladiators at this point. They have been making some moves. So they have acquired Space from the Valiant. They also acquired OGE from Dallas. So there's your tank line right there. They signed former London Spitfire DPS Green. And then, of course, they moved Decay over to Dallas Fuel. Okay, so the big question on everyone's mind. What is going on with Birdring? Obviously, there's been a number of inconsistency issues with Birdring, especially, this past year. I don't know if he's the right answer for that team. Because to me, like, I don't want to say Birdring is washed at this point, but, like, he definitely took a step down. Whether or not he's going to be able to re-find, his spot at this point remains to be seen. But I don't like the trade-off between getting rid of Decay and then bringing in Birdring. That's not a lateral move in my mind.
Yeah, the Birdring signing to me screams we're gonna have a rotation of 3 DPS type of situation. Um, where it's kind of like what we'll talk about in a little bit with Fusion is you're not going to have a set DPS lineup. You're going to be rotating out based on map. Because right now I don't know if Birdring is a permanent play every map type of DPS. So I think it's a good signing and it's a good start, but they still need to sign 2 more good DPS out there. So it'll be interesting to see what they can actually do.
Now, looking at their LA counterparts in the Valiant, a lot of stuff going on with this team. So as we noted, they traded Space to the Gladiators. Agilities was traded to Toronto Defiant. This team did make 4 sign-ins over the past, 10 days. They have signed Apply, who was a projectile DPS player over on Revival. They signed the Sydney Drop Bears main tank, Dreamer. Then they also picked up 2 flex supports, one from Samsung Morningstars in Slur, and then they also picked up Skyfox's flex support, Lastro. Okay, so Valiant, guys. I honestly do not know where this team is going to finish. Because on paper, when you kind of compare them to the field, it's kind of panic-inducing. This could end out playing out a budget team. They might be more in line with like Boston, or they can be sneakingly good, or better than what you would expect. What it's going to be, I honestly don't know. Apply has looked fairly decent in regards to contenders play. I didn't really catch a whole lot of Contenders Australia this past season, so I don't really have the 411 on someone like Dreamer. But Killer Delta's asking, do you think Leaf could be a Glad's pickup? And to that, I hate to break this to you, but Giganti has some of the highest buyouts of any team, and it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, they'd have to pay up the wazoo, and they're just not in the mentality to do that right now.
It's the same reason why Davin hasn't been picked up for the Overwatch, dealing with the same stuff, contract-wise. So that's unfortunate. But these are, Revival kind of middle of the pack. Samsung Morningstar's also the same boat. Skyfox's gone through so many different iterations. I can't even keep that team straight, because at one point they had 30 people listed on their staff. So right now it's just a lot of question marks. And then you have Custa. And part of me just feels awful for him. So yeah. I don't know what his contract is, how much he's making. But everything that we have seen about this team just screams that it's completely budget moves. And I know they sent out like a statement about like what their vision is going to be, all of that good stuff over the past week and a half. This team isn't broke, like some people are trying to say, but it's just it's hard to really see the value in the team or know where they're going until we see them take the field. But right now, like I don't know if this is going to be a team that is going to be competing in the middle of the pack. I feel like right now, just based off of what we know, they might end up being a team like Washington, where maybe they'll kind of like get overlooked a lot, like the first 3 stages of a year, or in this case, there's no stages, obviously, in 2020, but I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, and one thing that is also, and I have not heard this confirmed, they just haven't announced it yet, is I don't know if Shax is on the team. Like, they basically announced everyone else, but they haven't brought up Shax's name. So I don't know if he's on the team or not. We will find out. I would assume he is. So your DPS lineup is more than likely going to be Shax and Apply, which does not strike fear into the heart of people, but they could be decent. But yeah, I agree with you. Like this lineup is bottom 6 lineups. Could surprise and be like 9-10. Who knows? But right now, this is not a scary lineup, and it's not. I don't think when they talked about not being like a budget team or whatever stuff like that. I don't think they don't have money, but it doesn't appear that the sale of the Houston Outlaws has been finalized. So I don't think they've gotten the money from the Houston Outlaws sale yet, which would put them behind in money that they probably expected to have to put towards Overwatch.
So you're saying in the long run, you would expect more aggression mid-season
Yes,
in the
I
next
would
window.
once they actually it's confirmed they sell the Outlaws, I could see them starting to sign some of the top contenders teams, or just waiting till the end of the season and then start plucking free agents again. But I think not having the sale of the Outlaws go through has affected how they think of things. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Also, they asked in chat about runaway DPS. The runaway DPS are under 18. I think their starters are like 16 and 17. So like they can't play in the Overwatch League. The rest of them I think can,
There's
not the
only
DPS.
one player that's not eligible. I don't have the thing up right now.
Oh, see, I just looked on Wikipedia and they just had the ages of Hisu and Assassin at 16 and 17. So I assumed that they weren't eligible to play.
Regardless, let's talk. Speaking of contenders, guys, strong contenders Korea teams. If you would have told me at the beginning of the offseason that Element Mystics Core would be going to Paris Eternal, I would have told you to F off. There was no way that was going to happen. But sure enough, we got Sparkle, Anbin, and XEI on Paris Eternal, along with the head coach, Rush, moving over to Paris. What? Like, not. I would have never guessed this. Who knows? But you have their flex DPS, you have their hit scan DPS, you got their flex tank, all who have been standouts. You got their head coach, and now all of a sudden, there is stock in Paris. And it kind of makes sense knowing like some of the other offseason moves in regards to the coaching staffs, picking up people from like the Shock. But like I didn't really think that they would move away initially from like that EU core, and now it seems like we're gonna have a more in a low front. But man, like my heart kind of sank when I found out like they were going to Paris. I was really hoping that it was going to be the Dynasty, so they could continue to use that bargaining chip of playing in Seoul. and it didn't happen. And then I hear about all these other rumors about runaway pieces, about some of the other standouts from Contenders Korea, actually landing elsewhere, and then it just that ball is continuing to pick up momentum and it's rolling downhill further and further away from the dynasty.
Mhm.
And it's starting to make me panic a little bit. Because the pieces that I want there have not gone there yet. And it doesn't look like it's going to be an option.
Yeah. This was, needless to say, kind of shocking. Sparkle was the big get of the entire offseason. Like, new player. I'm not talking, the space trade was probably the biggest, like, whole crap move of the season. Sparkle was the biggest signing from outside the Overwatch League that happened. And to go to Paris was insane. With that said, he's not eligible till like May or something like that to play. So we won't see him for the majority of the season. But yeah, I mean, if you're gonna go all Korean or majority of Korean, you could do worse than the Element Mystic team. Uh, like they just went all out. They it's like they just were like, all right, best Korean team. We're gonna take the best players off that team, and we're gonna take your head coach. And you know what I mean? Like, it's a smart move. If you're gonna go Korean, if you're gonna go off of being a European roster to a Korean roster, go big or go home. Because if you go from an all European team in Europe to a Korean team with crap Korean players, you're gonna lose fans left and right. But if you come in with a Korean team and you actually win, then it's bygones are bygones. Don't care what you did, we're winning. Type of situation. So, great moves by Paris. I'll be interested to see what else they have in store. But I don't think they're done yet.
Probably not. So, moving into Philly, a lot of stuff happening here. A lot of it was from trades. So they have acquired Fury from London Spitfire. They also acquired Funny Astro from Atlanta. Then they acquired Ivy from Toronto Defiant. Now, outside of that, they did re-sign EQO to a new deal. And then, of course, the most obvious move of the offseason. Promoted Alarm from Fusion Universe.
Mhm.
Feels good, man. You knew it was gonna happen, sure enough. So they got that situated. What that's gonna mean for Boombox and vice versa, I will have to wait and see. But if you're playing Funny Astro, you're probably playing Alarm to be like hyper aggressive. I mean, the two would pair well with one. But EQO, yes, he kind of had an off year. A lot of that was he was a brig bot for a majority of the season. But keeping EQO and Carpe it was probably a safer move than going out and picking up someone new on that front. But Ivy, I don't know where he's gonna come into the I don't know what hero you'd start him over Carpe at this point, but maybe their coaches know a lot more than I do on that front. But I'm ecstatic to see Alarm getting this opportunity. As ever since this kid entered Contenders, when he's been on Fusion University, he has been an absolute stud. He's been a standout, and now we can see him pop off in the Overwatch League, and I can't wait to see it. But feeling a little bit better about Philly, but it still begs the question: who is their main tank sign-in going to be? Because at the end of the day, you still have Sato.
Yeah, like everything they did was amazing. Like, I like the trio rotation of DPS that they got with Carpe, Ivy, and EQO. I really like that, and I do like the Funny Astro, Alarm, Boombox trifecta they have at support, whether they keep Boombox or not. Um, the Fury signing, obviously, who can say the Fury signing was a bad move? Come on, it's Fury. He's probably the best off tank in the game.
More consistent than Poco, by bar none.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, Sato, obvious weak point. They need a new main tank. And I don't know who's out there for them to get, because most of the main tanks that we know have already been gone. Like, have already left and gone to other teams. Like, I was trying to think of who they could sign.
Kaiser.
Could they sign Kaiser? Yeah, they
Eligible.
could probably do that. I know he's looking for a team.
He's an OG.
Yeah. One other thing that popped into my head: Bumper. It's not the craziest thing in the world.
Potential. I mean,
It's
I
potential.
could see it. Or even Tizzy.
Or I mean, I'm going to bring it out there because his name has been brought up a lot, and he's been on stream talking about how he might want to
I already
come
know
back.
where this is going.
Fissure. I mean, let's be real. Fissure. Fissure, the only reason he did not work in Seoul is because Fissure and the Seoul team, it was just a bad situation for him. He's super aggressive, and that team was not built to be aggressive whatsoever. So that could be another signing that they do. Poco is going to be interesting to see if they actually keep him. I will be interested to see if you keep Poco, because under no circumstances on any hero is Poco better than Fury. Plain and simple. Poco will not start over Fury unless Fury is hurt. So, do they keep Poco? Do they get rid of him? Like, what do they do? So, that will be interesting to see what they do there. But
yeah,
great moves by Fusion.
The only other name that I was looking through the spreadsheet, that came up was Oberon from Genji Esports being a potential target. Who is it? Outside of that though, like, really not a whole lot of options outside of like Kaiser or trying to trade for someone on that front. But speaking of Genji, we do have a promotion from said team for the Seoul Dynasty, as the Dynasty promoted the Flex Support Creative from Genji Esports, and then they also released Jexay. But there were a lot of rumblings of like them buying him out of his contract, so like I don't know how much truth there is in that, or if it was just a flat-out release, but he was under contract for sure. So I'm assuming they did actually buy him out. Now, you know, Dynasty, we've been talking a lot about. Fleta has a lot of rumors about Fleta. Is it Shanghai that he was reported going to?
Yeah, it's Shanghai. Shanghai has made a lot of moves this week, but the reason we're not talking about them is because none of them are confirmed official.
So, next show, we'll definitely be talking about the direction that Shanghai is leaning towards. But on that front, you know, like I say, like Creative was like a really big standout on Genji, but like I'm kind of torn on how I feel about him getting called up in particular. But you know, Flex Support in itself is pretty deep in regards to the current talent that's out there. So I was kind of off-put-in on that regard. But you know, Dynasty have been a little bit quieter now that more pieces are being removed from play at this point. So I gotta see where they're going on that front. But let's talk about Toronto, Ed. Because Toronto had been a very interesting team to watch during this off-season. So since our last episode, a lot has happened. So we noted, like, they did trade Ivy over to Philadelphia Fusion. They released Neko. And then they acquired Agilities from the Valiant. And then they've gone out and they made 3 sign-ins. They signed Beast Halo, Fusion University main tank, now going under the moniker of Beast. Stupid, you and I both agree on that.
So stupid.
But they also signed Kelix, who had a very strong performance in the World Cup this year. So I'm curious to see how he's going to do on a new team, getting out of Boston. typically always works out for the person moving out of Boston.
Tell
And
that to Striker.
he's got a championship to his name.
All right, I'll give you that.
Stock goes up regardless of what his playtime was, but that DPS core in itself was deep as shit to begin with. And then lastly, the most recent one, or maybe Celtics was, but anyways, they signed Surefour. You know, like, Toronto to me is just like going out and they're like, okay, we're gonna pick up some fan favorites out there. And, like, to me, in regards to the off-season, headed into the 2020 season, like, Toronto has my attention. Like, this is the team that I need to see how this is going to pan out. Because there's a lot of big names, but just because you're going out, you're picking up the biggest names that you can, whether it's via trade, via actually signing them, does not mean that that necessarily is going to translate to big things for the team. This is either to work out fantastic, or this is going to blow up in their face. And I'm going to be sitting here, popcorn in hand, watching it all unfold. But, you know, Mangachu, Agilities, Surefour, I'm liking the sound of that for DPS.
Okay. Negative Ed's coming in. This is a bottom 10 team.
Also, they don't have Crimson.
Like, this is a bottom 10 team. They made a lot of flashy signings, but did they? Like, you know, Kellex. Kellex is a fine support. It's okay. You know, just an okay signing. Surefour and Agilities. Okay, decent signings. Surefour has definitely gone down, but his appeal is his broad hero pool. Agilities is probably their best DPS player. I'll say that. They're, you know, Kareev. Everyone loves Kareev. He's a fan favorite. I will say that.
Great Anna, kinda,
Exactly.
elsewhere.
And in double shield meta, Anna's useless. Like, really, Anna's not that good in double shield meta. So is Kareev the most effective flex support? Probably not. So I would give their support line a below average grade. And then they don't even have a flex tank right now. And their main tank is Beast Halo. Or Beast it's Beast Halo, for fuck's
Right.
sake. It's Beast Halo forever, and that's their tank line. Like, to me, that is not the sign of a good team. This is a sign of a team that will finish between 10 and 14. Has a chance to make the playoff, probably won't type of situation. You know, it's they're gonna get a lot of fans, they're gonna get a lot of viewership, and it's great signings for the organization, but from a winning perspective, I do not think this is a winning team.
Yeah, and it's true too. Like, you know, Beast Halo for a while was kind of stuck in the abyss. Like, we didn't know what was really going on with him contract wise. With Fusion University, wasn't really taking the stage. So I mean, I remember seeing him play in the past, and he's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been a while. There might be a little bit of rust. But yes, we still need to see what the other pieces are going to be. But honestly, I would not be surprised if they tried to get Poco from Philly.
Yep.
Just based on just the moves that they have made so far. But you know, Toronto, that always kind of been a team that were like middle-ish to bottom tier at times, so it's like they lack consistency, and hopefully the veteran presence that they are bringing to this DPS line is going to shore that up some. So we'll see how that shakes out, but some interesting sign-ins, see if it pays off. But from a fan base perspective, I feel like that raises their stock a little bit on that front, so I would not be surprised to see like their, you know, Twitch bits, donations, all that stuff really take a hike. going into the 2020 season, because there is a lot of fanfare out there for players like Sure and Agility, especially. But that's pretty much all of the roster stuff that's been going on. I'm pretty sure I got everything. I didn't touch up on any of the coach changes, but those aren't as big. But we'll see what happens from on. But it's probably gonna be another hectic week until our next recording on that front, since all these teams need to have 8 players under contract. So we'll have a better idea of what the picture is going to be looking like here within the next 6 or so days. But anyways, and let's move into our main discussion. Let's talk about the thing that is on everyone's mind. That being the fact that it is Jeffrey Kaplan.
Yeah, it's no longer Jeff Kaplan. It's Jeffrey Kaplan. So Papa Jeffrey Cap. That's how he has to be referred to now.
Yeah. See, I could always just say, like, I was shortening it prior.
Yeah.
Now we need to give him his due.
Yeah,
show him the proper respect.
At BlizzCon, he is brought on as Jeffrey Kaplan. It is officially Jeffrey.
Mm-hmm. So, Papa Jeffrey Cap, praise him. He came out.
That was the end of BlizzCon. They didn't announce anything else.
That was it.
He just came out and said, "This is my real name. Good night."
And that was it.
That was it.
That's all that happened, guys.
Yeah. Or there was some major announcement. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, I guess. So let's talk about Overwatch 2, guys. Overwatch 2, of course, the leak happened. Our death and savior, Papa Jeffrey Cap. He kind of threw some shade at Slasher, which I thought was absolutely on point and hilarious. And Jeffrey kind of stumbled a little bit there, but it's just like, luckily I can just look up on my phone what he's supposed to be talking about, because they did in fact unveil Overwatch 2. So let's talk about the cinematic first. So basically we had this 8-minute cinematic called the 0 Hour. We basically opened to a shot of Winston and May. They were on the dropship. May's just kind of sitting there questioning whether or not that they have enough people to complete this mission. And we pan over, we see Tracer piloting the ship, and they are headed to Paris, which is currently being invaded by the Null sector. So of course, Winston, he's the first one to jump out of the ship. He's looking to protect, the local police that are under attack. And unbeknownst to me, Winston can speak a little bit of French. Imagine that. He only knows bonjour, but that's it. But he probably knows baguette, since he hangs out with Brigitte. But basically, you see the civilians that are asking, is that it's a scientist, guys. Get it right. But we see Tracer coming in. He lands the dropship. Winston is just getting dogpiled. You see all these Null sector bots just jumping right on top of him. And May comes in, saves the day a little bit. She shoots her alt fire. Ice goes straight to the head to help aid Winston. And Tracer enters the fold. And then we see this giant ass Null sector mech come in, and he just starts obliterating everything in his path. He's firing rocket after rocket. We're shooting towards the heroes and the civilians, and we just see this giant fire beam that splits the dropship in half, that sets off a series of explosions. May gets hurt in the blast, and Ed, I know at that moment there was one thing that was on your mind.
I hope they kill May. I was like, oh, the game would be so much better without her in it. Please let May die. Please let May die. Please let May die. She lived.
Disappointing. Ensues.
Wah, wah.
And then there was a moment after that I was like, oh god, not this. So Winston is ready to hold the line, and you see Tracer trying to get May out of there. And Winston just turns around. He's like, don't worry, I'll be right behind you. And I was like, you do not say that! No! Winston, bad monkey. You don't say that, because that that is a big no-no. That is what you say before you die. And I was like, so they didn't kill May, but they're going to hurt Winston. And I was livid at that point. So we see Tracer escorting, May away from the area. The giant mech continues to, fire towards Winston. And then in comes the real hero, Ed. In comes Edgy Genji, diving in. It's a massive deflect. And, Genji, wearing sweatpants, rocking a little bit of a hood. Interesting design choices. I don't know if he's going through, his edgy teen phase or what the hell's going on that front. But Genji was the true hero in all of this. And we see Reinhardt coming in. He's, driving, and then we see him, leap out of an SUV. It's an Earth Shatter, which is kind of comical. And then we see Brigitte. Echo is there. We see Mercy flying in. Ends up healing May, much to your dismay. But, we see this moment where Brig and Ryan interlock their shields to protect them from the fire beam from this mech. And then we see, Tracer ends up rigging May's backpack with a pulse bomb. And then, Genji comes in, hits a Dragon Blade, opens up the mech. They throw the explosive in his chest. They dispose of it. And then there's, this really... this really awkward moment where Tracer is, pushing May in front of everyone to, try to introduce her to, the other Overwatch heroes. And then, of course, the police are just asking, does this mean that Overwatch is back? Sure enough, it is. But, to go from, oh shit, they're going to kill May, to, oh god, they better not kill Winston. That was, one of the most seesaw moments I have had in a cinematic for Overwatch yet.
I'm just gonna leave it at this. You touched on all the key points. Best Overwatch cinematic they've ever made. It's not even close. Don't at me, because all the other ones don't even come close to this. They can't even hold a candle to this. The sheer emotions that they put you through watching this it's like watching a legit action movie. The last second saved by the returning heroes. There is just pure perfection. So best cinematic they've ever made. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
They should have killed May.
Yeah, they should have killed.
And
but I knew in my mind they weren't gonna kill it.
With all the stuff going on behind the scenes, though, how pissed off do you think people would have been, though? Being oh, Blizzard's out here trying to make a statement.
Right? They killed May and they're use that to save Hong Kong, bitches. And then you're, oh god. I never even thought about that till now. Yeah, no,
that would have been pretty bad taste and pissed off a lot of people. So, thankfully, they didn't go that way.
Thankfully.
But anyway, so we got the cinematic. We got details in regards to Overwatch 2. Some of our questions about the sequel, I'm gonna do air quotes, were answered. We still have other questions, though. But we have a new PvP map type, which is the first new map type introduced since beta, that being Push. So, players are basically looking to gain control of a robot who starts in a central location of the map. Basically, teams are just looking to push it towards the enemy base. And these maps are symmetrical, and teams are just looking to guide the robot the furthest by the end of the time limit. Now, they did have Toronto playable at BlizzCon. That was the Push map that was unveiled. So you were able to play that on the floor. And, that map was pretty interesting. There were, a lot of flanking paths, which I was really happy to see. And, of course, it touched up on a lot of, Toronto things. There were a ton of, red maple trees around. It was snow-covered. You got glimpses of the Toronto subway system. And, it's important to note that when it comes to Overwatch 2, we're expecting multiple new locations for each existing PvP mode. So I think they were mentioning like they were looking at adding like 3 for each type. I know there's definitely 3 for push, but Toronto was the only one we really got a good look at. But there were 2. But we've been waiting for a long time for them to introduce a new mode, and finally we have it. It's that tug of war style that a lot of people have been pushing for, unintended. And I have to say, first impressions were pretty
Bad dad
good.
joke.
Oh, shut up. No one asked you, Ed.
You are 10 times worse than on Jungle Cruise. Narrator.
I don't know, because I'm pretty sure that's just based on a script. Mine are just off cuff.
That script is better than your off cuff.
I would hope so, because it's actually prepared.
Fair. But continue.
But I was just gonna ask, like, what... Like, we've waited so long for a new PvP mode. Like, are you expecting... Okay, so we know, like, we have seasonal map pools. Yeah? Or do you feel like when push comes out that they're just going to throw all 3 of the maps and then they're not going to be rotated out until we get additional push maps added later into the life cycle of the game? Because right now, we look at the Season 19 map pool and there's 3 of each. Like, is that just going to transition straight over? What do you want on that?
I think they're going to put in the 3 maps for push right away when push goes live, so they can have that rotation. But then they're going to, when Overwatch 2 actually releases, they'll introduce a couple more push maps. That's why they'll probably go up to like 4 or 5, so they can actually have a pool of push maps. One thing, so I had a lot of fun on the push maps. It's very weird to get used to like a payload type map where you don't have to be on the payload. It just moves. Once you have control of it, it just moves. You don't need to be on it. But I think this map style destroys the meta. Just destroys it. Because the thing is in payload, you're protecting the payload. You're on the payload, you're pushing that. But in push, you want to be up a little further. You want to be a little bit more aggressive.
Or like us, you can be at the spawn doors.
Exactly. Like, you want to hold them back, which will then in turn get more tracers or, sombras or stuff like that. Like, it's just going to throw, like, there's going to be less bunkering up and shields and stuff like that on this, because it's not like a payload. It's not like you can stand on top of the push and just kind of throw a turret on there and throw down Orissa's shield. You can't do that. So like Orisa, not really that usable on this map. Bastion, not really usable on this map.
Like,
you could go Reinhardt for a shield, but I honestly see this being more of like a dive centric map.
I can still see them bunkering up if, like, your back is against the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when it's so close to your actual base. Outside of that, though, it's probably not that likely. I do want to see them just being, like, Bob being able to, like, push along with the robot. I think that would be...
Yep.
But I doubt that's actually going to happen. But we'll talk a little bit more about that and just the demo area here in just a bit. Let's talk about the PvE aspect of Overwatch 2. So PvE content is here with the introduction of story missions and hero missions. So story missions are consistent of 4 players. There's a hero selection in each story. So it's going to be specific to whatever the objective is. And these missions are going to feature pre-game and post-game cinematics to further immerse you into the world of Overwatch. So we got that. We have these co-op hero missions, and that's where you're like traveling to like different locations across the globe. You are basically like going up against the Null Sector, Aelon, probably some other baddies that we don't even know of yet. And you're leveling up hero. So basically, like, as you level up in hero missions, you'll unlock talents, which will modify hero abilities. And we'll talk about, like, what talents were available at BlizzCon, because obviously there were only 4 heroes. So now the changes on that front. But in the PvE, we got the introduction of items, as well as these talents. So, the items, they kind of vary in function, also in rarity. So it kind of like allows different playstyle approaches based on, whatever you're using. So with the demo, they basically had like 4 items. There was the healing station, which would restore HP to all players within the radius. There was a corrosive grenade, which, that would deal damage. Then when it explodes, it basically like causes that enemy or enemies to take additional damage. There's a turret, which I want to say was like a 90-second cooldown.
Yes, it was. I used the turret when we played. It was 90 seconds.
Gotcha. And then there was also a shield. I can't remember how much. It might have been like 1,500 health, but it was like a big circle that kind of like envelops around you. So that was our first look at that. I don't know like if there were any other items kind of like hidden in the maps or anything like that. There might have been. But you had the option to play on the Rio de Janeiro mission. We had Tracer, Reinhardt, Mei, and Lucio. So I know for our playthrough, I played Tracer. You would play Mei. So, right off the bat, it's important to note, yes, we have talents, but in PvE, the hero that you are playing is not translated directly from PvP. So by that I mean, with Tracer, you had a larger magazine size. It wasn't quite double, but it was like 53-ish bullets. And that was throwing me off. Like, I'm so used to being in that sort of rhythm with Mei, with Tracer, and like, you add on to that, like, the talent that I use, that was also making the reload kind of weird, because automatically reload whenever you use an ability. It was kind of, it's an adjustment. So, like, it's not going to be necessarily, like, a seamless transition swapping between PvE and PvP, but, like, I don't think it's enough to be, like, the feeling that I am completely relearning how to play a hero. It's just gonna take a little bit of getting used to, but it's not going to be something that is going to, like, set me back an extensive amount. But I know Mei also had some changes to, like, her actual kit. So what was going down with Mei in regards to changes from PvP?
Well, for instance, she freezes a lot quicker, like real quick. So that is a huge adjustment to get used to. The talent I use, which is one of the more powerful ones, it seemed, was whenever she ice blocked and came out of it, she froze all enemies in a circle around her. So you literally run into a group of enemies, hit ice block, cancel, and it freezes everyone, and then you can just wipe up, 8, 9, 10 guys at a time. So that seemed very powerful. We didn't get to test more than that. We saw some of the abilities on the What's Next panel, but we didn't get to test out anything really above that.
Yeah, I do have the talents that were playable at BlizzCon. And it's worth noting, like, it was only the first talents. It wasn't like the other, like, options, or, well, technically, 2 different level options at that point. So for Tracer, it was the pulse pistol reloads whenever you use an ability. That's one that I use. The other one, which we mentioned on a prior show, was pulse bomb causes secondary explosions on those affected by the blast. For Reinhardt, your options were Earth Shatter travels in every direction, and Rocket Hammer damage recharges your barrier. Mei had another option, which was you can continue to move after using your cryo freeze. You could roll and knock enemies in your path, so you kind of like snowball. For
Yeah,
me.
that was not that effective compared to the one I took.
Mhm.
The one I took was seemed to, is in play was a lot better.
Right, essentially Frost Nova, for those
Yeah.
that play World of Warcraft. So for Lucio, Soundwave heals allies for 25% of their max health. So that's the boop. And then the other option was both songs play when you use Amp It Up. You get speed, you get the heal in all at the same time on that front. I would imagine. I don't know like which one I would pick over in that situation. Maybe on expert you'd probably want the extra heal in. Because
Yeah.
25% is actually a pretty significant amount on that front.
Yeah. I don't know which one that would be a scenario. That would be one of those situational type, like depends on what map you're on. I think that is one thing. One thing to note also on this is if you die, you can be rezzed. Kind of like in honestly, it's kind of like in Apex. If you die, your teammates can res you, but if they take damage while resing you, it cancels the res and they have to start over again, and so on and so forth. That's the only way for you to come back. If they don't get you up after I forgot how many seconds, then you're just dead. Plain simple. Then they gotta try and finish it without you, which is not gonna be an easy task.
Nope.
Like this is like legit. These are when people think of PvE in Overwatch, you think Junkensteins, you think these smaller things. These are legit dungeons. Like they have like three bosses or three checkpoints really, where they progressively get harder.
Right, and then after each one, that's when you get the items that upgrade
Mhm.
over time.
Yep. So like it does have a dungeon feel and it does take 20-25 minutes to do. Um so yeah, like this is essentially dungeons in Overwatch. Um, the one thing that and this is something they could easily fix, they just haven't announced it. The replayability is not there for me right now.
Well, the problem is like we only played it once. Like we didn't
Mhm.
try the higher difficulty. So we don't know like what the scale in entails at this point.
Yeah.
So
But
like
there has to be something you work towards to give it replayability. And that's something they haven't said what it is. Like if you're just if they're relying on the replayability of, well, let's just try and beat the time we had last time. That's not replayability
I'd
worthy.
imagine we'd see cosmetics added.
I and it can't just be loot boxes.
Mhm.
It has to be specific skins or stuff like that. Then that would have replayability. But if it's just like do this and this time, you get a loot box. Well, no, that's not replayability because I can play arcade mode and get loot boxes. Like it needs to have some form of replayability, like reward for it. But we don't see any of that now. That's why like I question like they really need to make it worth our time to do replayability.
Yeah, so we'll see what they're gonna do on that front. But we do have Overwatch 2 with upgraded graphics. It's on a new engine, and they did need a new engine in order to make the player versus environment work. Now, of course, this is just a huge visual enhancement. Heroes all have brand new looks. They're higher detail. The facial expressions are a lot more realistic than what they currently are in game. So we'll have like a lot more like emotive storytelling to the game now. There was also like an overhaul on the Overwatch HUD. So like I noticed definitely like the text is like a lot more readable at this point. And there's like a lot like the everything all the information that's like on the screen now is kind of like easier to just sort through. Like it's not taking up like a whole ton of space. Like they cleaned up on that aspect as well. But we haven't seen all the new character models, so I'm curious to see like what sort of things they have up their sleeves on that front. But right now, like we saw Sojourn, we saw Echo. There's reportedly like 4 new heroes in the work for Overwatch 2. So we'll see where they're gonna go on that front. But in regards to some of our questions, Ed, we were curious, like, is Overwatch 1 going to be a standalone from Overwatch 2? And I do have a quote from our dev and savior, Papa Jeffrey Capcap, praise him. And I want to read this, and I want to get your thoughts on this quote from him. Kaplan said that, and this was like after he was like pitching his ideal of a sequel. He says, the way that I try to convince people, I try to tell them if we do what's right by the players, they will be happy. We'll have a better game, and we will end up in a better place in the long run. Rather than having a short-sighted thinking that's usually driven by anxiety of the only way to get players to play Overwatch 2 is to cut off all the Overwatch 1 players and starve them out and force them to come over and make that game just sort of die on the vine. That, in my opinion, is not the right way.
This was the right thing to say. Like, everything we're hearing is basically Overwatch 1 is Overwatch 2, but without PvE content. So when it comes out, what you will be paying for is PvE content. If you don't have Overwatch 2, you're gonna get all the new heroes. You're gonna get all the new maps. You're gonna get all the new updated graphics, everything like that. You're gonna get everything except for the PvE modes, and your skins will come over with you. That was confirmed. And this was the best way that they could do about it. Like, this was, in our mind, best case scenario.
Right.
Like there is no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, this is what it is. Your Overwatch 1 is gonna be Overwatch 2. I don't like that they call it Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2. This is DLC. This is DLC content. It really is. They're adding PvE content to the like Overwatch 1. But they did it right. They're doing it right. And it's weird because Blizzard has been known to kind of be money hungry, and for them not to charge us for all the new maps, new heroes, and stuff like that with Overwatch 2 is kind of surprising. That they're doing the fans service by not being like, hey, if you just don't want PvE content, but you want all the new PvE content, PvP content, you don't have to pay anything extra. You don't. Like, none of that will cost extra. That will all be free if you have Overwatch 1 already. And that was shocking to me. So good on Blizzard for that. They did something right.
Yeah, because, like, for me, obviously, like, some of us have dropped a significant amount of money on Overwatch, whether it's buying loot boxes, events, or buying alt accounts 6 times, and then buy them on 2 other
Yeah, I was gonna be
two
like,
other platforms.
only 6?
I don't have 8 accounts, Ed. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you do. You have 6. You have
so
6
like
PC accounts.
my favorite thing is when like someone comes up to me and asks me, "How do you feel about paying for Overwatch again?" And my response to them is always, I have no say in this matter because I've already done it 7 other times. so
now, I will say I completely do not expect you to buy 8 new copies of Overwatch 2. I do not think that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Going out on a limb.
That's pretty safe to say, Ed, at this point. But in regards to the release date, cost, to be determined. Like, the date of fall 2020 has been thrown out there. I don't know there's a very good chance we'll still see Overwatch 2 at BlizzCon 2020, but that's probably the earliest window that we could potentially see. Now, regardless of that, like, how much would we be willing to pay for a PvE expansion, whatever you want to label it? I'd probably put it $30 to $40. I think you and I are probably in the same boat on that front. Like, the WoW expansions, bare bones, $50. That's probably gonna be the sweet spot. Like, it's not like full cost. It's not like on the really cheap end. It's kind of like middle of the road on that front. I would have no problem dropping $40 on the PvE content. But
It will probably be like $39.99 for just the PvE content, and then they'll probably have like a $59.99 version that gives you exclusive skins and stuff like that.
right, kind of like what they
Um,
did with like the Legendary Edition.
exactly. So I fully expect there to be two different versions. One cheaper, one with more cosmetic rewards included.
So outside of that, like obviously, like the biggest thing for us was like whether or not it's a different client, what's happening to cosmetics. Really no word on the loot box front, so we don't know if that's going to change. But doesn't look like it's gonna be going like the battle pass direction. So we'll wait to see there. But at the end of the day, like the biggest question right now is what is the release cycle going to be leading up to Overwatch 2? And on that front, we're in a position right now where there is absolutely no way everything just comes to a halt.
No.
I fully expect that either we'll get the graphic update or they'll push the PvP mode out first. And then they'll hold off on some of the other stuff. Like, we're not gonna get everything. Like, I don't think it's gonna be like, okay, you can have everything for, like, Overwatch 2 outside of PvE. Like, I feel like it's gonna be kind of an even split on that front, but, like, I don't think we're gonna have, like, this year-long lull period where nothing is happening outside of, like, events and balance updates. There's no way that's gonna happen, because, like, you just can't... You cannot keep your audience waiting that long, because regardless of what's coming out, you're putting yourselves at risk to not getting that player back for Overwatch 2 at that point, and they can't really afford that. But everything that we tried, everything that we played, just how the game felt, how the game looked, it looked really good. Like, first impressions were very positive, and we did PvP, we did PvE, and when we did push, we were trying to group with Ramses, and he ended up being on the opposite team, along with like 2 kids that were playing DPS, and we stomped them. Like, no mercy. There was no mercy. Both character and I'm not gonna take it easy on a bunch of kids. That's just not how I am. But I'm just like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna spam Moira, play super aggressive, and we gunned Ramses down in cold blood.
Yeah, that was great. Back to your point about getting stuff beforehand, like not just going with just balance patches and whatnot. The rumblings I heard were we will be getting um Sojourn and Echo, or at least 2 heroes before Overwatch 2 comes out.
Yeah.
As like a build up. We're gonna get Push with the maps beforehand. That's already been confirmed. Like, Push will be in the game probably by the end of the year. So we'll get Push with the new maps. We'll get 2 to 3 new heroes. And then more than likely, I mean, I would say 3 heroes. And then more than likely, it does not release before BlizzCon next year. At BlizzCon next year, they release more of the PvE content, announce it, and then it's like it goes live in 3 weeks type of thing. That would be my guess.
Or
So a year from now.
or they do like early access, like what they're currently doing, with Hearthstone Battlegrounds.
Yep. Um, I do not want to like a lot of what was glossed over by everyone because Overwatch 2 was a big announcement. All the PV stuff, big announcement. Possibly the biggest bonus update change, whatever you want to call it, was the graphics. Like legit, that is dynamite. Like they knocked that out of the park, and it's just little things here and there, like the HUD improvements, like just everything just looks so much crisper, so much cleaner. They made things more friendly on the screens. Like it's just they knocked it out of the park. So I cannot stress enough how good that all looked. I
Yeah,
can't wait.
yeah, and we did the PvE stuff, and first impressions, like it did feel kind of like Destiny 2 in a lot of ways. It does have like that dungeon feel to it. I I don't know if like these expert or potentially like, legendary modes will be like the perceived raids, or if they're even going to use that as like terminology, so to speak, since it is just individual stories. But like for me right now, like I just want to see how much of the timeline are they going to be jumping around at this point, or is everything just from this null sector point and beyond, or if it's going to be a mishmash of past events leading into future events that we don't know. But they had like 6 or 7 different locations already. Kind of like during the unveiling, like across the globe that are going to be added for like these story missions. But we made the mistake of on the boss, the final boss of the whole thing, of grouping up. We were way too close together, and like this boss had like a bunch of like AOE like shockwaves, so to speak, and it like pulsated everywhere on the ground. 3 of you guys died. I got the hell out of Dodge. But of course, while the boss is happening, there's a ton of other ads that come in. There's like these flying mechs that are shooting all over the place that are a pain in the butt. But like, it was to the point where I was like, crap. Like, I have to kite not only the boss, who's gonna hit me like a truck, but also all of these ads that are flying around. And everyone was in like the same area, so like, regardless of how much movement I have, not being spread out definitely killed us in the long run. So we did wipe once. After that, we did adjust. We had no problems taking down the boss. But early impressions for the PvE side, I really enjoyed it. But we need to see how the progression is going to work on that front. I want to see how much deeper the gameplay is going to be once we start to incorporate like all of these other talents and these mechanics. I want to see like what other like tweaks we're gonna see from the PvP side going into PvE. So I want to see like what Genji is going to be able to do outside of being able to throw his Dragon Blade now, which is fantastic. So we can actually kill things with it rather than being like, did that register? So all in all, I'm very happy with what we got. And like we're at this point now where we can basically confirm, like, there is no reason to doom and gloom until Overwatch 2. As I know there's been a lot of negativity kind of like revolving around that, but people, you can breathe easily. Like, we're gonna have stuff coming out. We're gonna get the new heroes, we're gonna get the PvP stuff. Patience. It's gonna take a little bit of time, probably. We'll probably see a new hero, probably 3 months, I would imagine, at this point. I don't know if it's going to be Echo or Sojourner first. Probably Echo.
Or someone else.
Or potentially someone entirely new.
Even
like,
Maui.
I don't know, we'll see on that front. But between the two, Ed, which one did you prefer more? Did you prefer the new PvE content, or did you prefer push?
I preferred push personally. I like the mechanic of the tug of war. And the only reason that the PvE did not win out is because is because I don't know what you're doing the PvE for. Like what you're getting from it. Like PvP, it's like, okay, we beat this other team of players. In PvE, you're like, we beat the AI. And that was it. So the fact that we didn't know what we were kind of like running PvE for kind of took away from it a little, but man, push was a lot of fun. A lot of crazy things will happen on push maps. Lots of crazy things,
Like coalescing people in their spawn.
right? I got pushed. Yeah, I got way too aggressive as Reaper,
But
but
you
I
know
was
what?
okay
It
with it.
worked.
I got to play the game. Oh yeah,
You did get played the game.
so much fun. I had a blast. BlizzCon as a whole was just was just amazing.
Hmm. So, that pretty much wraps up like the Overwatch 2 aspect. Obviously, there was other stuff happening at BlizzCon. We did have Con Before the Storm. We had the Overwatch panel, and if you guys are wondering, like Totem, like where's the panel? They were having some issues with the audio. We're hoping to get that sorted out soon. I know last year we had it basically up BlizzCon weekend. Not the case this year. Hopefully, we'll have it to you out in podcatchers within the next couple of days. As soon as I get an update on that front, I will be sure to let you guys know. It will be released. It's just a matter of when. But moderating the panel this year was an absolute blast. We're on it. So was Ramses. We had D from Omnic Weekly. The Blevins was there from High Noon. Ballerina was on the far end, furthest away as possible from you. From the Cavalry, our recap. We had Bob being our cheerleader out in the audience. We did recognize quite a few faces in the crowd as well. Like I know Thrill was definitely in the crowd there with Bob. Rod was out there. I know Fist and Pat Crane both stopped by for the panel, which was nice to see. So, CTR community sticking together through and through.
Yeah, and oddly enough, shocker, we went too long and we did not get a Q&A session.
It's not that we went too long. It's just the fact that with 45 minutes, it was not going to happen either way. Like if we had an hour 15, we would have been able to have the time.
I mean, the two previous panels had enough time for Q&A.
But the two previous panels also didn't have our back and forth, I should say.
That's the one thing that I learned very quickly is when we were doing Con Before the Storm, like all these other panels, like they were cordial with each other. Like they knew each other and stuff like that. And, they've talked a couple of times. Whereas when we got to the Overwatch panel, legit, we're all just friends. Like, so it's like, we're just up there shooting the shit, talking back and forth, like ribbing each other, saying inside jokes, which I don't care if people don't get it. We're just ribbing each other, having fun because that's the thing is, like, I guarantee you the people who are on the Hearthstone panel together weren't all sitting together during the Hearthstone finals. But during the Overwatch World Cup, we're like all sitting together cheering on at the same time. Yeah, it's that difference. Like the Overwatch panel, all the Overwatch content creators are just good friends. And it's you could tell just from our panel that we were.
Right. So definitely go check it out as soon as the panel is available. Same with like the other panels out there. I did peek in for a couple of the other ones, and they were all fantastic as per usual. A lot of big names being represented. A lot of big podcasts out there across the board. But we also had our meet and greet. So I basically brought we had character stickers, mini Pachimari plushes. We also had character shot glasses, which flew. Like almost immediately, our tracer shot glasses were out the door. But we had some interesting people stopping by. I gotta shoot the shit a little bit with some of my CTR guildies that stopped by, and Boss stopped by, good friend of ours from who I frequently stream all the time, and that's been going on for I'm at like 23 months up to him at this point now. But it was always good to catch up with Alex on that front. We also had some esports players stop by from Team Latvia. Which, by the way, guys, we're actually gonna have their head coach.
Latvia.
Yeah, we're gonna have their head coach on next week. That being GG Mentality. So we'll talk a little bit about like the World Cup, kind of like the process of going through that. Getting tier 2 players, tier 3 players on board, and just his general experience with the format changes, all of that good stuff. So it's gonna be interesting to see how everything checks out on that front. But it's not every day that we have a guest on the show, and I'm looking forward to Mentality stopping by this next week. But across the board, Come Before the Storm, awesome experience. But there was really one aspect, Ed, of the meet and greet that kind of surpassed everything, though.
Our favorite Swedish couple. I'm assuming they were Swedish. I'm assuming. So we had this couple from Europe who brought us Swiss chocolate filled with alcohol. And it was legit the best chocolate I've had in ages. And there was alcohol in it. And they brought it over to us, and I'm like, okay, this is amazing. Like, I love this. I love everything about this. And then they left, and I'm like, oh, bye, Swiss people. And then all of a sudden, it's like they came back with more Swiss chocolate with alcohol in it. And I'm like, oh, you guys are literally my favorite people of all time right now. So that was a lot of fun. We got to meet a lot of interesting people. Like, people seemed very tentative of coming up and talking to us. So but once they came up and talked to us, it was just like, oh, yeah, no. Like, I get this. Like, we're just gonna shoot the shit with them. Like the thing with the Latvia is one of the players came up with us and just started talking with us.
Right.
We didn't know he was from Team Latvia. Then all of a sudden he took one of our stickers, and then he comes back and he's like, oh, hey, our main tank is a Reinhardt player and would really want a Reinhardt sticker. And we're like, oh, your main tank? He's like, yeah, I'm on Team Latvia. And so he came up, grabbed the Reinhardt sticker for him. And then he comes back and he's like, hey, like, my coach would really love to, talk to you guys on your podcast. And then so he reached out to Totem, and now we have him coming back up. One of the most intriguing things that happened at our meet and greet is
me almost getting eaten by a T-Rex.
No, not even that. A Robinson. Nobody really knows his name, but he was going around to our panels, and we just started talking to him. He is the writer of the cinematics for Overwatch. He wrote the script for the Overwatch cinematic that was released at BlizzCon. So we're sitting there talking to him, just like, I'm just flabbergasted. I'm like, I love literally everything you do. We geeked out over the Bastion cinematic. And then Taryn Gregory just strolls up, bumps into him, and starts talking to us. And for those of you who don't know, Taryn Gregory is in charge of all cinematics for Blizzard. Like, he's their boss, and they couldn't have been nicer. And it's great to see, those kind of people just mingling with all of us and interested in and talking with us. So the meet and greet was a huge success. While we didn't have a line of people waiting to meet us, I'm glad we got to talk to people.
Yeah, and
that's what it was all about.
And the thing too is, it's like, I've met Taryn a pretty much every year at BlizzCon, and there is no one that I have met from Blizzard that is more approachable than Taryn. Like, I always see him hanging around the Hilton. He's always going from person to person. He talks to literally everyone, and he just has this following around him, and he's just one of the most genuine people I've ever met. And there was even a point on our show, after the Junker cinematic, where we kind of like had a specific segment built around the idea of like the arena aspect of the Junker area, and like I remember telling him that story and like how moved he was by that. So like it's kind of cool just to see, just how close people are, even from Blizzard within the community, at just being approachable and just just being one of us and geeking out with us over our favorite moments in Blizzard.
Yep. And that's the biggest thing to me. Like next year, I'm actually torn between actually going to BlizzCon or just going out there for BlizzCon, because my most memorable things were the parties, the con before the storm, when you get to just meet with friends and hang out with friends and 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 have no worries in the world and just have the time of your life. Like you weren't there Saturday night, but the essentially what turned out to be the Overwatch League party,
Mhm.
where it was just all the casters, all the players that were there. Everything happened at one of the hotels, and I was there. And yeah, every single one of them was like every single player, every single caster was ridiculously approachable. I got my picture taken with Jake, me and a Houston Outlaw player, and me and him had a good 5-10 minute conversation. I got to speak to Tavik, and I fangirled out because I'm a giant, and literally, what me and him talked about for a good 5 minutes?
My Dawn.
My dong. We talked
Yes.
about my dong for 5 minutes, and he's like, it's the greatest team name of all time.
Mhm.
So, it was those moments that I will remember the most over anything that happened in the actual BlizzCon. I remember those moments 10 times more,
Right.
and that's what I look forward to. So, like, you may not get a BlizzCon ticket, but go to BlizzCon. That's the best advice I can give to people.
Yeah, I mean, there's always stuff going on. Like even like convert to radio, even leading up to BlizzCon, they do meetups. Like I know, one night they were doing like Bottle Logic, then they were doing karaoke after that.
Mhm.
There's a lot of stuff happening even leading up to the Friday to the Saturday, and a lot of partying. Like let's be real. I know Fri Friday. It was like one of the first. It was one of the earlier nights. Like I strolled back to the hotel at 5 o'clock in the morning Pacific time, so that was fun. Then
That
I
was the night I
then
played Old Man and went to bed and didn't
yeah,
go
and then
out.
the next night we went to Roscoe's and I hit a food coma, and then I didn't make it back out. While you were going to the party and whatnot, so I was kind of bummed on that front because I didn't know like who was leaving the next day, because some people do fly out on Sunday. But we spent a great amount of time at Disney. We went a little bit earlier than we had initially planned, just because Vashti and Swayze were taking a little bit too long after however late they were partying the night prior. But it was Dapper Day, so a lot of people were dressed up. But it was just cool, just getting to just chill, geek out about Disney, about Star Wars, even going on like newer rides that I hadn't been on, which was really cool. So like we even got like some new experience, and that was your first trip to Disneyland too.
That
Like
was my first Disneyland trip. I've been to Disney World numerous times, but if you live in the Midwest or the East Coast, you go to Disney World over Disneyland. It's just easier.
right.
So, but yeah, it was awesome. Um, God, I can't wait to go back. I legit, like, I can't wait to go back next year.
And that's
Yeah.
why the next year is gonna feel like, as like leaving BlizzCon, and like I even tweeted about this. Leaving BlizzCon is always kind of bittersweet. Like, yeah, like we're all comfortable like at home, but like you're never truly in that element,
You're a different
unless
person.
you're surrounded by your peers. Like there's just
Mhm.
there's something in the air whenever you are with your fellow nerds, just shooting the shit, just having a good time, having drinks, seeing what sort of shenanery you can get into, regardless of what time in the morning it is or what time you're strolling back to the hotel.
Mhm.
But BlizzCon in itself is just a magical experience, and I hope every person out there is able to at least experience it at least.
Yep. I completely agree with you, but I know we and I'm gonna say this: we may or may not release it because we don't know how well it will sound. But we tried to record something while we were out there, so hopefully the sound is good. But even that was a little fun. Like we wanted it to be like a 20-minute thing. It was it was 55 minutes. We just sat there talking about BlizzCon and what we saw that day.
Mhm.
Like, oh God, I want to be back out there. Like you just feel good being out there.
And it's just one of those situations too where it doesn't matter who you're talking to, you're around. You can strike a conversation with anyone and know what that person is into and get a sense of who they are. But with that being said, Ed, I think we're getting to that point. Let's go ahead. Let's wrap up the show. I know it's like 2.5 hours at this point
Right. We could
already.
go on for like another hour just on our BlizzCon experience, but we probably should cut it off.
So, with that being said, if you guys are looking to support our show, the best thing to do is always to go over to iTunes or podcasting app. Give us feedback. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know if there's anything you'd like to see us incorporate into the show. Which we cover a lot of stuff already, guys. I mean, unless you want us to go 3 hours, I'd be happy to. But that does cost a little bit more money on the hosting front, and there's already plenty of times where we go over. Regardless, just doing 2 hours or 2.5 for that matter, not including bonus episodes, all that good stuff. So let us know, give us an insight on how we can improve the show to make for a better listening experience. And Ed, we do have a new review this week.
We do.
So why don't you go ahead and let us know what is going on over in the land of iTunes?
All right, so we got a 5-star iTunes review from iHeartRadio, biggest fan. Uh who said, best broadcast ever, hosts are amazing and never miss anything listening to these guys. Go Shock. You picked a good team to follow. They might have won the championship. You're
That
probably
that
pretty
that might
safe on
have.
cheering for them.
They did.
They did. But you picked a good team to support. So iHeartRadio, thank you for that. iHeartRadio. That's all I can think of now is iHeartRadio. So yes, thank you for the 5-star review. But yes, any reviews, more than welcome to send them our way. We appreciate